How's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of No Excuses with your favorite show hosts. All of us here this time are still.
Venerian.
And roll as hell, man. Fenarian doesn't sound like he's got much gunpowder today.
I do not. It's been an event the last couple of weeks. I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, it's been not fun.
At any rate, we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week, although I can't say that I've really seen any. But if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcuses@vtw. Let me start again.
Can't
If you
words.
would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us an email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com. You can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which is the best place to communicate with us and other listeners to the show, which you can get to by clicking in the link provided in the show description underneath the show archive on YouTube.
There you go.
Yes, indeed. We are once again on the Genshin. You are currently taking a ride on one of Fontaine's many aquabuses with the best tour guide, Avail, who will point out things that are to your left, underground, that you cannot see.
What?
She is not very good at her job.
Evidently.
She will also forget to remind you to keep your arms and hands inside the aquabus at all times until the very end of the ride.
Say trolling.
Right then.
Yeah.
So, Fern, you've been gone for a long time.
Couple of weeks. Yeah. Yeah. Missed last week's show, and I'm not going to get into any of that because nobody wants to hear that. It's depressing and it's really, really rubbish. So I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm just going to talking about Vidya because there is some Vidya that happened. We'll start at the top then. I've been still chipping away at Persona 3 Remake. I kind of slowed down a bit on it because of stuff happening, but I'm getting back into it again now. And I'm just hitting the end of the summer break sequence at the moment. And I'm not sure at this point in the game I'm going to have enough time to do all the social links. I've got
what
maybe...
were you doing? Were you derping about, or?
No, I think it's just not necessarily poor time management. It's just the requirement. There's the two freebie ones, which is Death and the Fool. You get those two just progressing the main story. You get a couple early on, which you generally churn through really quickly, like the Magician and who does the track team? Chariot. But then there's some that just have really weird meetup times, like the MMO player. You can only go to her on Sundays, and a lot of the Sundays are occupied with other stuff.
Yes, the Hot for Teacher social link.
Yeah, the Hot for Teacher social link I've just finished. I've got to do one more event for him.
No, not that one. The one where you actually are Hot for Teacher.
Oh, the other Hot for Teacher social link.
The MMO player one.
The fact that there's two is... yeah.
Typical.
Yeah, it's typical. But yeah, still enjoying it. Having a lot of fun with the new mechanics and the new bits and pieces they've put in there. They've fleshed out a lot of the boring bits in Tartarus. So floors tend to go by a bit quicker, and you can still faff around and meet the Reaper if you really want to. But I have not accidentally summoned the Reaper yet.
Even in a normal playthrough of OG Sona 3, you had to really try to meet the Reaper most of the time. There may be one or two floors where you just get stuck.
I heard the chains rattle maybe like 2 or 3 times during my entire playthrough.
Yeah. And usually when in my original playthrough, it's like I heard the chains rattling, and that was because I'd stayed on the floor to grind for a bit. So yeah.
Well, I mean, the other thing though is that in the first one, usually by the time you get hit by a patch of slowdown, you're already at the point of needing to retire for the evening because of the time mechanic.
Yeah, thankfully that is not there anymore. So you don't have that ridiculous fatigue system, which is really annoying. Like in some cases, your characters were still like 90% mana, full health, still fully functional, and they wanted to go to bed. It's like,
Nowadays, you need a cat to tell you when you have to go to bed.
Yes, now you need a cat. which you need to cuck.
I
Nobody
forgot
likes
about that
Morgana.
meme.
You got to cuck the cat.
Uh,
So yeah, it's a good time. There are some side contents though. Some of the they've added additional doorways in Tartarus where you go through, you get bonus treasure and stuff like that. With some really, let's just say, cheesy bosses. They find a mechanic and they just harp on it for a bit. Admittedly, some of the regular bosses do that as well. But yeah, there's other little bits and pieces I've found. Like once you get Koromaru, I think he actually starts accelerating your social links with nights you don't go into Tartarus because you can take him for a walk and just proceed social links that way. It doesn't trigger any of the main events, but it will raise your social score or whatever you want to call it.
I feel like
And
that was in the original version as well.
I can't remember if the going for walkies was or wasn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. It was not. I don't know if it was always there, but in the evening you could talk to Koromaru and spend an evening going for a walk, and there was a chance that you would run into a certain person on certain days, and there would be like a mini event or at least a couple of musical notes sort of thing.
Yeah. So maybe that's there, but it's still there, and I think it's random now as to who shows up, as long as they're an active social link. Although I did run into Bunkichi, and I finished Bunkichi social link, so that was a wasted night. There's also the events with the other characters or your other teammates, which unlock additional stats and abilities for them, which is really nice. I've done Yukari's both so far, which means she casts healing spells at like 25% of the cost now, which is really nice. Yeah, most of the events are just dumb, silly, funny little events, or they'll shed a little bit more light on characters' backstory. Last one I did was the dog trying to force his way into the cinema because I don't know why.
Because why not?
Because why not? Dog wanted to go see a movie. You gonna tell him no?
Pretty sure cinemas do, yeah.
Yeah, the cinema did actually tell him no. But yeah. Speaking of Koromaru, he used to be a wasted party slot, but now he is ridiculously good. He starts off because he doesn't get a second persona. He actually starts off with both of his Stayurges.
Because he has reached Nirvana.
He is dog. His persona is dog. Dog in triplicate.
You know, I wonder if Fern has just attached to this game because it has Koromaru in it and they buff Koromaru.
I will say that Persona 3 dancing is, of course, the worst game in the series because there is no dancing dog in it. But more particularly is one of his Stayurges is his standard nuke, single target nuke. His second one is a buff that everyone in your current party will do double damage on their next melee attack. He also starts with Revolution on his spell list. What that does is massively increases the crit for everyone on the field, enemies and allies. So you pop both of those and then start meleeing, and things fall over real quick.
I was like, you don't let enemies have a turn in Persona. That's not a thing.
You don't. That's not a thing. As long as they're vulnerable to melee in any way, you can basically dismantle anything with that combo.
Yeah,
His big downside is he doesn't get a lot of mana.
He doesn't need it if he's a physical type cast. If he's physical like that, if he's casting Revolution.
Yeah, I don't think Revolution was in the original, was it?
It was, but I specifically remember Hulk Hogan using it.
Oh yeah, Hulk Hogan used it. Or Hulk Hogan used Rebellion, which is the lesser version of it.
Rebellion was the AoE high crit chance baseline mode.
Yeah, Revolution is the massive boost, but to everyone.
Yeah,
I'm not sure whether it was in there or not. I did build physical, like that was what I built my main character around. But I don't remember. I don't think I used AoE because AoE physical is very risky in the later stages of the game because there's so many reflect physical things.
Oh yes.
Never mind that it has a higher chance to just miss,
Yeah,
and you don't want that.
you do not want that, especially when counter comes into play. But I will say that they have rebalanced things a bit. So if you get a new party member, use that party member for at least for the next segment of Tartarus, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that's weak to whatever they're packing. Unlike the original, which, yeah, it was just kind of all over the place, do whatever. But I think I'm probably going to keep the dog on my team because there's a lot of stuff that is weak to dark.
Of course you're going to keep the dog on your team. It doesn't matter what the enemy layout is. You're Fern. It's a dog.
He is dog. He is best boy. But yeah, if he was absolutely shit to have on the team, then I probably would regrettably not have him.
No, you would still have him.
If I couldn't make him work, I wouldn't. But I'd try to make him work first.
No. You would find a way.
Cheese dog?
I don't know how you do it, but you would be determined enough to fit Doggo on team.
Probably, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Persona 3 is good. It's expensive. And we were talking about that during the show, before the show, because yeah, they're still asking top dollar for the price on it. Just wait for it to go on sale.
It's a remake. I mean, come on.
It is. It's a good remake.
If it was an all new Persona game, then I would not really bat an eyelid at it and be like, oh well, games are expensive these days.
Yeah.
But they're just selling a game they already sold me once. You've got to be kidding. I'm not going to spend lots of money on that.
Once. They've sold it to you 4 times at this point.
Well, they sold it to me once.
Yes.
Yeah, they've sold it to me about 3 times.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I've only bought it once.
How many times have I bought it? Twice, I think. Maybe. Well, and then I Game Pass this one, so yeah.
I physical copy, portable Persona 3 portable copy, digital version on the PlayStation Network copy.
Yep.
So I bought the video game 3 times now.
I've got 2 copies of Persona Golden, or 4 Golden, and neither of which I paid for. Actually, I might have 3 now I think of it. The first one I got was as a Christmas present. Then I got one, I think, from the Sony freebies giveaway thingies, whatever they were called again, I forget. And
PS
I think
Plus
one from the Epic
rewards.
Store. Yeah, those ones. Didn't that turn into a dead end?
Well, it didn't need to, but Sony are just bad at running businesses, I guess.
Yeah.
They
Like,
decided
the current incarnation of Sony just runs everything into the ground.
they injected that California right into their veins, thrust it deeply into their chest.
With great force.
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, Persona 3 is goo. It's very goo. But, yeah, I cannot justify spending the $70 they're asking for it on.
Yeah, it's just not a like I enjoyed the third one, the Persona 3 the most. Like it's my favorite of the 3 for a variety of reasons that I've talked about on the show before, but I just don't want to give them a big pile of cash for the same game again.
It's also
Like, I mean-
Sega at the end of the day. And they love their sketchiness.
I'm not sold on this whole you need to buy the same game over and over thing that the industry seems to think is the way forward. Well, I don't
Yeah.
really want to encourage that type of behavior. There are some games that I think, oh well, maybe a remake is needed or justified or whatever, but I never
Yep.
really felt like there was anything to be gained for Persona specifically in that regard. It didn't
Yeah.
seem to me that way at any rate. No, I mean, there can be a plurality of opinions on that matter, but I don't think that it was worth it. It's not. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem logical. What am I under attack by? A bunch of passing robots. Why are there a bunch of passing robots? Yeah, it's I can't sort of mentally make the argument for it because it's like, well, there's these other games. Like, I'm playing a couple gachas right now. I've got a big pile of stuff in my backlog that much of it is very good. I've got a long list of games that I intend to play at some point, and then adding
Mhm.
a game that I have already played through to completion and a reasonably thorough completion at that, it doesn't really. I can't really make much sense of it. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't. What will I gain at the end of it? A
Yeah.
little bit of member berries. That's it.
Yeah, like the graphical zhuzhing up is really nice, and the quality of life stuff is great. The extra content is there, I guess. It's okay, it's there. But at the end of the day, it is still the same game.
Yeah.
We've already played it.
Yeah, if it was like I can make the argument much more easily for something which other people have condemned as being a more of a corporate shell exercise, like Final Fantasy VII, because they're actually doing something interesting and different with the story. It looks like, even though they're
Yeah.
going through the same beats, things are proceeding in a different way. The starting conditions are different, and the way people behave is different, etc. There are things happening there, and
Mhm.
it's enough to make me curious as to what will happen next. But
Especially with the hints that they're going to be taking the story in a new direction for part 2.
but in the case of Persona 3, the objective of the exercise is to do the same thing again.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not against remakes or remasters or anything like that, as long as there's a reason for it. Like some of these remasters we're getting at the moment have been for games that are, what, 3 years old. They look exactly the same.
Do not mind the fact that we've been talking over a splash image. The show started a while ago, but the show starting soon splash image was up until just now. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, that happens.
We're
Ow!
that
Just got
professional.
punched by
Like
a robot.
we're super professional. We're so skilled at being professionals. We're
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
professional you can't even tell we're professional.
Got to miss
We
the
are very good at
entire
this.
trip on both of the lines of Fontaine. Oh well, we can go on them again.
All right, so that's that. Anyway, other game I played this week has been Last Epic, which has just come out. Epic as in time, epoch, however you want to pronounce it.
Last epoch.
Which is
Epoch. Just lean on the E.
Epoch. Which is also a MacGuffin in the story, by the way, because I guess they ran out of names. But yeah, it's an ARPG, very much in the vein of your typical ARPG fare. It's like you got your character classes, you press your buttons, things die, get loot. It's done very well, considering it's a game that started its life as a Reddit post. They've released their 1.0 version today and put out the last of the playable classes, finished the story, all that goodness. And I would highly recommend it. It's just a lot of fun. The characters you get, there's 5 classes which split into 3 subclasses each, and then between those there's still a great amount of flexibility. There's a few gripes I've got, like for some reason only the rogue can use bows, but beyond that, it's just dumb fun. The story it's there, I guess.
I always feel a little, as somebody who grew up doing hobbyist archery in the backyard, I always feel a little bit salty that archery is, like, in modern fantasy conceptions, entirely the province of criminals.
You know, now you mention it, yes.
I'm here to tell you, if the government looks at either of our search histories, we're getting labeled as criminals right away.
Well, I guess that's technically true. But I consider that to be a problem with them.
Yeah. So yeah, Last Epic has actually done really well, and frankly, it scratches that itch that Diablo 4 horribly disappointed in.
All right, Grim Dawn had that update. I keep meaning to go check that out.
Grim Dawn's update, yeah, they haven't put out the DLC yet. I think that's coming another month or so, March maybe.
You guys are still on like the first deal, but I think we finished the first DLC.
Well, much
we
like
finished-
much like the Grim Dawn historically, it's not going anywhere. It'll be there waiting for us when we come back, and they'll probably be still supporting it.
Yeah.
Yes. Unlike Blizzard.
I think
But-
Blizzard could do with stopping supporting their sodding bullcrap.
Yeah. Because I played a bit of Diablo 4. I really wish I could get that time back.
I have just learned that the incompetent tour guide gives you a different guide on the tour on the Aquabus every time you ride on it.
Is this one any more competent?
No, she's telling you not to place large, flat, sharp objects on the Aquabus because sometimes private brawls break out, and that's bad for business.
I mean, that's fair advice.
She's a little mouse girl with mitten hands. She's doing her best.
This robot has rockets. Oh no! So yeah, if you want to play a good ARPG, I recommend playing Grim Dawn. But now you've got Last Epoch there as a Epoch. Sorry.
You
you got
public
last-
security is top notch. Just shout, "Help! Save me!" and a Gardamek will be there to assist you.
I mean, again,
I was distracted. What were you saying?
yeah. So yeah, if you want another ARPG, you've now got another good option. Especially if you want one with a little bit of weird time travel-y shenanigans going on in the background as well.
I'm taking notes here on insurance fraud and how to commit it from my tour guide. Hang on.
What?
Telling me how to commit insurance fraud.
And you're going to take advice from a incompetent mouse girl.
Yes.
I see.
I need to get off this line. It's too distracting. I keep interrupting Fern.
All right, so that's basically it for me for now. At least on video game. I got Nightingale queued up there to go. I haven't been able to sink a whole lot of time into that yet. I do want to push Puck down a deep, dark well, but I mean, he is phase, so what can you do about that?
Oh, did Nightingale finally
He's
come
named Puck. Like, if you're named Puck, you're basically condemned to be a jackass.
Yeah, it is not a Puck, it is the Puck as well. Because, yeah, you're in the Fey realms. The Fey are, well, the Fey. There's no better way to describe them.
They are not
They
merely
are-
tools, they are the entire toolbox.
Exactly. They will peel off your skin and wrap it around a tree because they're bored. That's what the Fey do.
Well, more to the point, they'll have your agreement to do it too.
Yes. And you wouldn't even know you've given it. But yeah, so far for that, I'm only a little ways in, and it's fine. The combat's maybe a little clunky, but I think that's just because of the weapons they give you at the start. You do start the game with a fine selection of moustaches, as is appropriate. And I am apparently running around trying to find somebody named Nellie Bly. So, you know, there's that as well. Also, Charles Babbage is around somewhere. You find a few notes from him basically poo-pooing the Fae's attempts at technology. So yeah, probably talk about that one a bit more next week. As for Animus, I got back on the road, the train, and kept watching Undead Unluck, which I think is lining up for a maybe a 3-core all up. Unless they're going to find some contrivance to keep the plot going after they've reached the end, looped time, and saved the world. But it's fun. It's basically shonen nonsense. What more could you ask for? The world is completely bonkers. Oopsie. This robot just cleaned me up. Oh, because that robot is 15 levels above me. That's why he hit so much harder. Dope.
Did you find a friend?
Steel, I'm doing a rotating block puzzle. There are 4 blocks arranged in a square. Each of them moves the ones that are on either side of it and doesn't move the diagonal. They are all facing the same way but the wrong way. What's the procedure to get them all to face the right way?
Rotate 3, scream, and then start rotating them at random.
Well, I already tried that. It didn't work.
I'd need a pen and paper.
Yeah, I hate those puzzles. It's like,
Well, I can't do the show and solve these at the same time, so I'm just sort of smacking them at random.
yeah.
That
What do you mean I have to stop and think? How dare you?
that works for a surprising amount of them because they're relatively simple. But
Yeah.
if you get one, if you break one and get it all kinds of jumbled up, you gotta stop and have a thunk.
It's not too bad as long as there's a reset button somewhere.
It's called the
There is no
logout
reset
button.
There's no
Eh,
reset
yeah.
button.
What was that noise?
Are you getting frustrated with this puzzle? I guess I'll just keep hitting them at random. By the end of the show, maybe I'll hit on the answer.
It'll just pop into place, yes. So yeah, that's been my weeks really. It's just been a little bit of Vidya and a whole lot of personal drama and stuff, and I just don't want to deal with it. Blah. Why must life be life? I don't want to adult anymore.
Because as much as we complain about it, if life wasn't life, we would all be bored to tears.
Quite probably, yes. It makes those times when you can sit down and just mindlessly play Vidya all the better.
And listen to the Melicians tell you about the wonderful Fontaine Research Institute, if you look to your left, which is currently in pieces, floating in the sky. Just the prices we pay for advancing science here in Fontaine.
Yeah, that sounds like science to me. Okay. I'm gonna leave it there. So, Vol, what you doing?
Raging at this block puzzle. That's what.
Yeah.
For those that are wondering, we can go investigate.
You can.
I got co-op game is loading and made the Aquabus go away.
No.
It dropped me into the line.
Wait, it just popped out of existence?
Yes.
Well, that's not good.
Oh, this one. Oh, this
Go
one.
down a hole, and I'm like, where am I? And there are blocks here, and I'm like, what am I doing? I don't understand.
Okay.
It's even more jumbled now.
It's okay.
Okay,
Okay, so smack that one. Just do your week. I'll try to solve the puzzle for you.
Anyway, right, my week. I had to go to do performance reviews for my staff this week.
Oh
We'll
joy.
continue to have to do so going forward, which I hate doing because performance reviews are like, you aren't allowed to be negative, even if they deserve that you are negative toward them. You'll just get complaints to HR if you do that. So you have to pat them on the back in such a way that they feel injured by it, or something.
Oh,
I guess.
okay. They frowned on you telling the truth, like this person is a bottom-dwelling troglodyte.
Yeah. Fortunately, the people that I am annoyed by have resigned. Unfortunately, people who I wasn't annoyed by have also resigned. But yeah, mostly we've got a raft of new people at this point. It's not really.
No, I
Not
thought
really,
I had it. That's so had it.
Not really a great deal to do for a number of the interviews because people have been working for like 2 weeks or whatever. So yeah. Anyway, nevertheless, it has been a huge burden on my time. Thank you very much and congratulations. Did you do it systematically or did you just flail about?
I was trying to get the two back ones to rotate separately, so I was going bop and then bop and then smacking one of them and then coming back to the front and going bop and bop on these two and then going back to one of the ones in the back that looked out of line and would hit the other one until I eventually got three of them the right direction and one of them needed to stay still.
All right. Anyway, so that was an annoying burden on my time, which meant that I didn't have as much. I was not able to get home in a timely fashion, and one of the districts had E. coli in the water, and it didn't show up till late because they dropped off the samples really late, and so I had to stay at work late, doing all of the alerts, making sure that the councils got alerted and that knew that they needed to boil their water, and oh my goodness, it was a huge pain in the butt. But unfortunately,
Please tell me they had no idea that there was a potential E. coli in there beforehand.
when we had trouble contacting someone, and eventually I got my boss to help, and he managed to get through to them, and they said that, oh yeah, that site is a problem child.
And they still left it to the last minute.
Yeah, well, I gather from like bits and pieces that I've heard, I gather that they had a problem with their own internal laboratory, and
Okay.
so they had to send us, because normally we just handle stuff that they need done on weekends and public holidays, and they had brought in extra samples to us because their ability to incubate samples or something was impaired by like a damaged incubator or something like that. I think it's something like that anyway. Yeah, so it was an unexpected extra set of samples that we couldn't do much about, but they got it to us so late that it was oh my goodness, I've made a bad decision. I'm now going to drown. They got it to us so late that I was the only one left in the building by the time it was ready to be reported. And when I reported it, it's oh, not only did you register this wrong, but it's actually drinking water on this site. So yeah, so most of my time got pretty badly chewed into. Gacha. All I've played is Gacha, but then everything is Gacha for me at the moment. So basically, Blue Archive, the rerun of the Momoyodo summer event was this week. Very, 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 very short rerun considering the amount of crap you've got to do. It was I've basically had to do maximum purchases from the
There we go.
PvP shop
Okay.
to get enough. Huh? What?
Oh no, ran into troubles with a tornado.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Are you in the middle of a quest, Fern? I've been trying to join your world, but it won't let me.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying to find how to proceed it, and it doesn't want to proceed. I think I've got to walk through a windy maze.
Yeah. So, how long was this rerun? 5 days?
It's 6 days, but the amount of stuff that I think it was 6 days. It was like a week, but the amount of stuff that you've got to do is really quite a lot for that amount of time, because this event was the prototype for the finale event of the main storyline, in the sense that you've got heaps of different tiles to conquer and upgrade and so on and so forth, and you've got the periodic whatchamacallit, credit rewards every X amount of AP spent and so on. So I've had to basically clean out the resets for energy in the PvP shop just to stay caught up with the event. And I will only be able to get a tiny amount of the stuff in the shop by the time I'm done, because the event is too short to actually complete the event in any kind of thorough way without using pyro refreshes, and I have no intention of doing that. But the shop isn't terribly important unless you're one of those people who absolutely has to buy out the shop every time anyway. So yeah, the whatchamacallit, the welfare character, Summer Shizuko, is actually kind of important strategically, since she's basically the welfare version of Track Yuka. If you need reposition, she's pretty much your go-to gal. Until Track Yuka gets her rerun. So yeah, it was worth doing it just to get her at least. Although hopefully I will get Track Yuka on the rerun and I won't have to worry about using her too much. But in situations where you need to do two teams and both of them need repositioning, she's definitely going to find some use. The event is curiously a direct No Time Has Passed sequel to the Abydos summer event. Like, it just continues straight on from where it left off at the end of that story, which is not something you normally see. Normally these stories are designed to stand alone, more or less, but this one is like a straight sequel. It just keeps going. It is very very silly, and I appreciated that Wakamo got to be the heroine at the end because she spends the whole Abydos event causing trouble due to misapprehension about what is going on. She takes it into her head that the Abydos students have kidnapped Sensei at the start of the story, and basically makes a nuisance of herself as a result, all in the name of attempting to rescue Sensei. And in this one, she's in the interim time has realized that she was wrong, that Sensei wasn't actually kidnapped, that was all in her mind, and she shows up to save the day at the end of this one. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Wakamo. I think she gets a bad rap. I think she's very well intentioned. She just has impulse control issues. um,
Otherwise known as
Yeah.
she's a woman.
yeah, I guess. So that is that one. I'm not actually sure what's up next for Blue Archive. What event is next? I haven't checked what came next, but we must be getting pretty close to caught up at this point. Yeah, I did pull for Summer Izuna because Summer Izuna is a very good Unga Bunga mystic character. And generally speaking, I don't much like building mystic teams because my resources for building mystic teams are a bit lacking. I've got like some good meta supports and stuff, but I don't have anybody to really, just bring the damage. I've got snipers, but I don't have sustain for long fights and just killing trash and that type of thing. I've really got to build up Chisei a bit more, maybe build up cycling the cycling Shiroko, who I think can do that job okay. But yeah, I just don't have a very good loadout for that. But Summer Izuna is quite good in that capacity because she does most of her damage comes from her auto attacks and auto skill. Her EX skill is pretty much a footnote. It's not that important.
All I know
she
about
can
her
just
is volleyball.
she can just be relied upon to do damage without needing to be attended to very much, which is useful because you kind of need to save your slots for other things. And also, she doesn't, as a slot filler, she doesn't become useless just because you're giving all of your buffs to somebody else. So if you've got like Track Hasumi or Haruna or someone on your team to be your main damage nuke, or Wakamo, regular Wakamo for bosses, you can give all of the buffs to them, and Izuna will still perform without any additional buffs because she's mostly able to take care of herself. So I pulled for her, and the gacha decided to troll me.
As it do.
I sent a screenshot to Ari. I don't know whether he perceived what I was getting at or not because I didn't explain. But I got 200 pulls and got Izuna on the last pull. So yeah, I got to pity, and I got Izuna on the stroke of pity. But because Blue Archive is not an incredibly stingy gacha, that just meant that I could spend the whatchamacallit, the pity on Chisei. I was very, very tempted to spend it on Memori instead, because she's just a more appealing character aesthetically. But in the end, I decided to go for Chisei because Memori's actually, when I checked the of the three characters, Memori is as a permanent, and Izuna and Chisei are limited. So I decided I'll just get the limited ones. And Chisei does have her uses as well. She's sort of like once you've got her unique equipment, she's like a slightly better version of Kyoko. She was entirely useless when she came out on the original run because she was just a slightly worse Kyoko, and more to the point, her CC was unable to fill up a HOD tower CC bar, and basically the standard watermark for is this CC good or not is whether or not this character can fill up a HOD towers bar in the HOD raid. And Chisei couldn't, she would fall short. But once she's got her unique equipment, she can, so she's useful again. But yeah. So yeah, that's that. I've more or less finished the event except for the farming, and I'm not too worried about that. I'm just basically going to pick up EXP books and a few skill materials and things, and then I'll call it good. Next gacha, Genshin. I haven't spent much time playing Genshin per se. I did pull on the Yoimiko banner when it came out. It only took me a couple of 10 pulls to get Yoimiko, but that wasn't the point. I wasn't actually pulling for her per se, although she's useful for the team that I'm building, which coincidentally ended up being the same team Arya's ended up building, although he claims he had no choice because Navia.
I didn't. I don't know what you want.
But
the only difference is which our mainline Geo particular character and our Geo support character we're going to wind up using.
But yeah, so I pulled her, but I have done nothing with her. Like, I intend to build her up, but number one, I don't have access to the bosses required, and number two, I don't have anything like the EXP required. There seems to be a real limiting factor in Genshin is just getting enough EXP to actually level up characters. It seems to be more limiting than virtually anything else, because you can't easily force the issue, because the opportunity cost for using ley lines is ridiculously high.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the point of that banner was to get more Ningguangs, and I did get more Ningguangs. So my Ningguang is now at C6, which is quite nice because it's basically you expand your 2-part ult into a 3-part ult, and it has had a pretty significant impact on my outgoing damage potential. But
yeah,
Paul, so that's done.
What about your C4, your 10% elemental resistance?
Oh boy, 10% elemental resist. I'm sure going to notice that. I mean, I guess if you've got a way of stacking elemental resist and it multiplies by that, it could amount to quite a bit. But yeah, nah, I don't care. I tried to pull on the weapon banner because I have a massive shortage of weapons because I've never pulled on a weapon banner before. So pretty much all my characters have to use crappy 3-star weapons. The crafted weapons tend to be pretty niche, and there's usually like a couple of characters who crafted weapons are really good for, but mostly they're just rubbish. Like, they're not really worth doing anything with over a 3-star weapon because the stat gain is a little bit marginal and the effects are often kind of rubbish, or in some cases dangerous to even use. But so I pulled on that and I got absolutely slaughtered by the gacha. It just picked the worst things to give me over and over again. Technically speaking, Ara still says that the whatchamacallit, Lion's Roar or whatever it's called.
It's a fallback weapon. It's nobody's optimal weapon. Not even
well,
close.
I mean, most 4-stars aren't.
No, but I mean, even
said
among
that it was at least usable, but I have my doubts. But I got 4 of those sodding things. I guess if I stack them all, that will eventually amount to quite a bit. And it does have an attack primary stat, but it still seems like a terrible idea to TBH. I got piles of them too. Favonius Lance, I know does work for a few characters in niche, but only if they are on-field energy recharge characters which use polearms, which are not that numerous at all. So yeah, not helpful. Same in the same case with Favonius Warbow. Like, there are just not that many on-field bow characters. That because bows are kind of bad most of the time. There are a handful, but not that many. Yeah, so I've got a big pile of rubbish from that, and I basically used up all of my my Prima gems and wound up like 20 pulls away from the 50-50. So now I'm in that sort of dangerous position where it is extremely tempting to just wail the last little bit to get to the 50-50, because I think that it's probably going to take me longer than the banner's got to build up a decent amount of Prima gems again through doing quests, unless I like just take some time off and autistically sit down and explore the entirety of Inazuma or something. I don't really see me having the time to do, especially considering the boss is away for a bit, so I'm going to have to make sure everything stays working. Yeah, and there's a lot of crap going on at work over the next few weeks. Next week is stock take. Week after that, big boss is coming. Week after that, we're being internally audited. Oh my goodness, I just don't even want to think about it. So yeah, I don't know that I'm going to have the free time to make enough progress on it, but that's sort of the point of gacha games, is to take just enough of your time that it's worth buying out that time. That's what they're
Hmm.
angling for at all times. So yeah, I'm in the steel jaws of gacha at the moment. But yeah, that is that. I have not
You
made
did
much
get
progress.
you did neglect to tell them about your most powerful pull. Your great sword.
Oh right, yes. The only thing that appears to have made much gameplay difference so far, which is I pulled on the normal banner, no less, the fixed permanent banner, I pulled a Wolf's Gravestone, which I haven't got any 5-star weapons up until this point. I don't have any familiarity with them or what they're capable of. The stats on 5-star weapons are incredibly bonkers.
Yeah, I
Like,
wasn't kidding when I
there's
said my Diluc was mostly being carried by that sword.
It's like it's the closest thing that there really is to straight pay to win, because even constellations are much of a muchness. The difference between a 5-star, the power of a 5-star weapon and the power of a 4-star weapon is around about 100%, based on my sort of eyeball estimate. Like, it's not
Mm-hmm.
quite, because weapons are not directly comparable to each other, being that the effects are different. But it looks like, in terms of like output, you're looking at about 100% difference. A 5-star is roughly twice as good as a 4-star.
Yeah, if you get your character's optimal 5-star, it definitely is 100% ish. That sounds about right. And
Like, if you're the sort of person who whales a 5-star to C6 and gets their weapon maxed out because you're a crazy person, like, you will be able to play, solo character Genshin Impact at that point, because your raw numbers output will be high enough to not need teammates.
yeah, I'm here to tell you with Verdict on Navia, like the damage potential for my Navia is significantly higher than other people because I also went crazy for her weapon. And I'm glad I did because I'm
You
gonna
know,
be playing this character forever. But holy crap, her weapon is nuts.
yeah, I've only ever seen the context though of Ari's Navia while I am also playing Ningguang, and apparently this is a different story to Navia the rest of the time.
Yeah, when you have a Ningguang with you, what I actually have is ammo belt that has white hair and a Chinese bud, and he can just feed me ammo, and we get the big numbers. Because Navia can
Yeah,
hold 6 ammos, and normally when you're playing her, if you don't have an ammo generator, you got like 1, 2, maybe 3 on a really good day with the server takes lineup ammo. With a Navia that has a Ningguang following her around, you have 6 ammo every single shot, and that is a straight 45%. Even if you miss, if you hit everything, it's a 245% bonus if you hit all the shrapnel pieces.
anyway, that's the thing. So I haven't made much progress in the story. It's not that I dislike Genshin's story. There's certain things that I really enjoy about it, and I particularly like that it is, just generally speaking, a bit more lighthearted. Like, it's more optimistic and not quite so downbeat all the time. So it's quite a palatable story for me, who does not particularly like sad stories. Um, but Inazuma has some momentum problems, man. Like, they haven't managed to make me care about it at all. There's a lot of questions are asked early on. A lot of plot threads are dangled in front of you, but every time I mention one, Ari's like, "Yeah, they don't do anything with that."
Yeah, I'm just gonna rip that band-aid off now because it's just gonna make it even madder if you find it out yourself.
Like, it's just it's a mystery what's going on there, because there is so much room to play with what they set up. Like, they set up this really sort of weird dystopian environment, which is sort of like, it's sort of like weird, like folk punk dystopia. type of thing. And there's a lot of room to move in there, and there's a lot of things that appear to be going on in the background. A lot of different parties with different plans and different intentions and different attitudes towards what is going on. But apparently, it just all falls by the wayside.
So you'll get to spend some time with them off screen. I get more and more bitter about the Inazuma story the longer time passes.
Yeah, yeah. What's the point of having all that off screen? It's like just da 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 da. Okay, yeah, you're friends.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they have done such a poor job when it seemed to me like everything was quite like it looks like what it might look like if somebody had carefully and cunningly set a story up, but you were totally ignorant as to what the story was about. Like, it looks legit.
Yeah,
But
it
there's
clearly
nothing
had, it clearly had some planning to it, but either whoever was put in charge of it just totally bungled the execution, or they just did a coof hit or something and they ran out of time. And those are the only two things I can think of.
Yeah, it's a weird experience seeing all of these these clear story points sort of dangled in front of you that don't mean anything in the end. It's like, oh well, this is going nowhere.
Yeah, as soon
It's going
as
nowhere as
you
well.
get through the go have a date with the two girls, and as soon as you get those bits done, the story is going to move at light speed through the rest of Inazuma. Like, you'll be done before you can blink twice if you just follow the main story.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be the case. It really does seem like there's some sort of production problem.
Yeah, and
It doesn't seem like a writing gaffe. It seems like a production gaffe.
I have reached level 10 with Navia. Friendship 10 with Navia. I am now best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what it is.
I'm actually I'm waiting for you to get to the end of it and see it for yourself. Just because I've been
well, I mean, your
Octale.
descriptions do sort of beg a belief a little bit. Like it's sort of hard to countenance that they could screw up in such a profound way.
Yeah, and I want to see, after you see what I'm talking about, just where I was getting at with that, and see how close you line up with it.
Yeah, I'm mystified by it, really. Just the description, your description of it is puzzling, to say the least. I'm not really sure what to take from that. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see when I get there. I mean, you seem to think it won't take very long once we finish shopping or whatever. So
The shopping
yeah.
trip does take a while.
Yeah, I feel like that there's also seems like there's a lot of space, a lot of scenery, a lot of it looks like a place that is very well populated with things to do, except they don't really give you a good reason to go out and do them a lot of the time. Like, it's almost like, you go out to farm puzzles, not because you're adventuring. It doesn't really feel like an adventure. It just like feels like, oh well, I need to mow the lawn because I'm here now, so I might as well.
Yeah, and this is why I said I liked exploring Inazuma as much as I did. Because if you're in there to find the mechanical stuff in the world and go exploring and do the puzzles and stuff, it's real good for that. But as a cohesive world that fits together in a region and tells a story and all that stuff, just staying here.
And it's just, it seems like a bizarrely sort of broad scale way of dropping the ball, really, because it doesn't make a lot of sense that you could make a mistake on this sort of level when, like, the sort of level which causes an entire plot to disappear into the ether is kind of incredible.
It
Um,
it is so WTF by the end of it that it is almost worth it just for that experience.
yeah, because you keep alluding to the idea that they resolve the plot in a completely nonsensical and asinine way.
Yeah.
And like, what could possibly be so bad that it doesn't just get written off as being like bad in the way the rest of the story is bad?
Yeah, like the rest of it before it was plain, but I didn't go out of my way to emphatically emphasize early Genshin as bad because it was just plain. But it's fine to order your meals plain sometimes. This is special, and the way it's bad is special, and is probably worth experiencing just for that. I really do want to see where you line up with me on this because I think you'll be at least in my ballpark with the end of that story.
Right. Anyway, next gacha, Honkai Star Rail. Honkai Star Rail I consider to be more my main game than I do Genshin. It's just more my speed generally, and I'm bad at action games. So even as shonky as an action game as Genshin is, it still gives me fits at times, and I end up just spamming buttons randomly. Um, I pulled one more time on Black Swan's banner after crapping out last time, and I got her on that 110 pull. So I have Black Swan now, which is good because that basically sort of completes the DPS contingent for the team that I was building. Now I just need the Fushuan banner, which is supposedly coming up soon. That's what people are saying. I don't know whether it's been confirmed or whether it's just a rumor. It's sort of hard to tell because it's one of those games where people will talk about their banner predictions as though they are facts, based because they've done, like I've actually watched a video by a guy who did the he collected all of the data on all of the banners and all of the combinations of characters and tried to look for the patterns in them and what would the marketing team be thinking. The guy who makes these videos, I can't remember what his channel name is, but he's like a financial analyst as his day job. And so he looks at the gacha through a marketing lens to see, what logic would they use to combine certain characters to get certain consumer behaviors. And but in the end, the conclusion is that you can make some reasonable educated guesses, but by and large they still throw curveballs and just do nonsensical things from time to time. Like I think it was who was it? I think Pella was on two banners really, really close to each other. Like they were apart by like 2 weeks or something. And what's her name? Oh, I can't remember. The woman who runs the Skyfaring Commission on the Xianzhou Lofu. She hasn't been on a banner for like 9 or 10 consecutive patches. And it doesn't seem to be any explanation for why. But yeah. At any rate, I'm holding out for a Fushuan banner because I feel like the Domi Mommy contingent in my roster is getting a bit too strong for my taste.
I was going to say, is this going to help or hurt your public image?
I think that most likely with Genshin, no, not Genshin, or Honkai characters, no matter what, it's going to hurt. It just depends on what column you put, what elemental typing that damages. It's not really about whether you get damaged or not. It's about the typing of the damage. But yeah. Fushuan does not fall in the Domi Mommy contingent. She is more of a, tsundere character. But yeah, she's who I'm hoping for as my replacement sustain, because I am a bit tired of using March 7th and Natasha in combo, because you basically can't get away from it in the early game. You don't have much else that you can work with, because Natasha is basically a heal bot. She's a very good heal bot. If what you just need is healing throughput, turn over turn, she is your girl. But there are basically no situations where healing throughput is good enough on its own. So you always have to combine it with something else. So there are lots of sustained characters that healing is their main thing, but they will do something else as well. Like Huohuo, for instance, is a healing character. She's an abundance character. I think she's abundance. But she also buffs attack damage, so you can close out the fight faster. And you've got other characters who they heal, but they also shield or something like that. Like they've got multiple different axes that they can influence the battle along. But in the case of Natasha, she just heals. She just heals.
But she is a teddy bear.
She does, technically. I don't know what grudge she has against it, but I feel bad for that bear. And March 7th is who I've more or less stuck with as my tank. And she's not a bad tank by any stretch of the imagination, but she's kind of basically not reliable. She's tough and she does attract a good amount of damage, and she does mitigate it up front with shields, which is like mitigation with shields is generally a better strategy than patching yourself up afterwards, because high effective health is good for dealing with spikes. But she's basically not reliable. She has a very, when she's working at full tilt, she has an extremely high aggro modifier. Except that it's just a modifier, and if the enemy decides that I'm going to attack your carry, then your carry is dead. Too bad, so sad. Because she can't hard taunt. Like, characters that can hard taunt still have to deal with the taunt occasionally missing, but that's buffered by the fact that they also have a high aggro modifier. It won't be high as March 7th's aggro modifier, but it will still be a high base aggro modifier that they're stacking a hard taunt on top of. So if the hard taunt happens to miss one target or something, then you're still likely to attract an attack. You've got an extra layer of protection, which March 7th doesn't have. So yeah, there is some pitfalls to using March 7th, and since she's the main sustain and you need to use another sustain in conjunction with Natasha, that means that you end up filling 2 slots with sustain, which is not a bad thing. There are plenty of teams that use double sustain because you don't know what you're going to be fighting. Because if you have double sustain, then elemental typing sort of doesn't matter, because you'll be able to survive the fight for long enough that you can get by regardless.
Just so y'all know, by the way, this show will be going up archive only.
What have you done?
The live stream broke, but we have a backup. So
have you checked that the backup is saving?
It is.
Okay.
So you will not be hearing this live. It will be archive only.
But yeah, so the where was I? Sustain. Right. You've got the sustain and with that combo to go on for a long time, but you're still doing a unreliable strategy. Like there are better strategies for sustain. Like if you want to run double sustain, you'd be better off doing something like running probably Fushuan Fire Trailblazer, which doesn't really have the same sort of like outright healing chops, but will decrease the incoming damage quite substantially to the point where it's almost trivial. And Fire Trailblazer generally is useful because she can be built like a bruiser. She doesn't have to be built like a tank. So you can stack some attack on there and still gain the utility of having a tank in a pinch. So you can basically have a tank off tank situation. And that as a sustain mechanism works better than the sort of the stock free to play Natasha March 7th. Which is not to say you can't get by perfectly well with Natasha March 7th, but what I would like to run is Fushuan, Ruan-Mei, Kefka, and Black Swan at the same time. And I can't fit Ruan-Mei in there so long as I'm running double sustain. So, yeah, and Ruan-Mei it seems to work really well as a support for Kafka, because Kafka seems to do a lot of break, because she's got quite an effective follow-up attack, and she generates quite a bit of energy off of her dot ticks. So, yeah. What did I do? I pushed all the way through the primary story of Penacony 2.0. So I don't trust anybody or anything that took place in 2.0. You have it mentioned to you a couple of times, in fact, over the course of the story. Like when I can't remember who tells you. Actually, various people tell you. I think more than one person will tell you. Will just straight up tell you everybody on Penacony should be assumed to be lying. And it's like, well, you've just thrown into doubt everything that has happened so far. What am I supposed to do with this? Yeah, so it's Penacony being a world where you've got sort of dreams and reality kind of mingled together means that it's sort of hard to tell what's actually happening and what's not. And the more you think about it, the more paranoid you become. It's very hard to tell what things are legit and what things are not. Like after you've spent a lot of time sort of moving unpredictably between dreams and reality, things start to dawn on you that make you suspicious. Like the very first thing that happens as you are arriving at Penacony is you fall asleep on the train on the way in. And when you wake up, you've already arrived at Penacony, which means that your character never personally witnessed your arrival. So, like, well, what does that say about the reliability of your assumption that you actually passed through the physical world to get there? Like, it's not really very clear. There's a lot of framing at the start that appears to draw a clear delineation between dreams and reality early on, but the reliability of it is sort of questionable because you had a unusual introduction to the place because you fell asleep on the train on the way in and had a bunch of strange dreams in the process, and then you go to a place where having lots of strange dreams is sort of the raison d'être of the place. So yeah, it's a bit dubious. And the other things that I noticed are things like, it seems to me that you arrive on Penacony with your fellow members of the Astral Express, and you're intending to have a holiday together. That's your original intent before you get drawn into the various events. So you're intending to spend the time together, and once you get drawn into whatever's going on, it's not really clear what's going on even by the end of 2.0. You are still attempting to resolve the issues that you're faced with as a team, but it's very, very conspicuous after the fact, in my opinion, that you, especially if you contrast it with Jirilo 6, the first world, you basically spend no time with your companions. They're never there. They're always somewhere just out of vision. And your communication with them is all by phone.
Okay.
Occasionally, when you have, brief repose to the real world, you will meet up with them and chat with them in person. But all of the time where stuff is going on, they're never there. They're always busy somewhere else. And you will see them or hear from them through another medium. Like somebody will show you them on a security camera, or one of them will contact you by phone and send you a text. Like it's never straight up talking to them, which I find highly suspicious.
The fact
Yeah.
that game has an absurd number of times that characters will kidnap other people's telephone to text you in the text message conversations probably doesn't help with that.
Yeah, it's a little bit like real life in that way. Somebody can just pick up somebody else's phone and message you.
Has nobody heard of locking their phone?
Not in the Star Rail universe, no.
No, it seems not.
But yeah, so Penacony is kind of a weird place in a lot of ways. It's sort of broadly Art Deco themed, I guess I would say.
Okay.
But it's a very odd place, and for people like me with a shoddy sense of direction, it is incredibly punishing. It probably took me about 6 or 7 hours to complete 2.0, where I'm pretty sure that there's not really that much content there. It's just that down is not always down in a dream. And things like pathways depend on perspective. So it's sort of very, very hard to describe what I mean by that, but if you play it and get there, you'll eventually understand what I mean. That there are puzzles that are solved simply by distorting perspective. Like if you view something from a particular angle, it might make two pathways meet up that don't actually meet up in physical space, and then they can be traversed.
That's kind of neat, but also headache-inducing.
And you will often have to utilize the walls and the ceiling when navigating an area that is not at all unusual. Yeah, generally speaking, can be a bit rough, especially if you don't have a good sense of direction. And the worst part, and I don't know if this is a bug or deliberately designed as an interface screw, when you move between walls and ceilings and such like, your y-axis inversion changes.
Uh-oh.
I already hate this place.
Yep.
You had me at walking on the ceilings and all that sounds cool. The second you said you're messing with my y-axis, we're out of here.
It's rough. It seems to me, though, after having done it quite a number of times now, that whatever you set your y-axis inversion to applies on true down. When you're standing on gravitational down, your y-axis is correct, and if you're not standing on gravitational down, it's inverted from whatever you have it set to by default.
I see.
I think. Which is why I started to think maybe it was a feature. But yeah, so it's a bit of a challenge for me, who is directionally challenged. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I feel a little bit bullied by the game by the end of it, because I had so many questions and such an elevated level of paranoia by the time I got to the end of the story that I now feel a little bit at a loss, because I have to wait for the next part of the story to come out. But generally speaking, it was enjoyable. There are a couple of bosses in there that signaled to me pretty strongly that I'm hitting the end of my rope with what I can do with +0 gear, and that I need to basically take a break and farm some stuff and get my characters a bit more up to par. Because currently I'm trading entirely on the power of levels like cones and traces, and I have not leveled any kind of gear whatsoever. That's all at baseline.
You got further than I would have expected you to without upgrading gear. Normally these games push you into that a lot sooner.
Well, I mean, they want you to think. They want you to think that you need to, certainly, because it's very resource intensive and time consuming to work on gear. But yeah, I've gotten thus far. But when I fought one of the recent bosses, I found quite frequently that I would get one or two shot by it, just as a matter of raw numbers. I was not able to keep up with the incoming damage. It was kind of tough to get through. I would just get completely wrecked, just because of like, natural turn over turn attacking. It was not like I was failing a mechanic or something. It was like, oh, boss kicks you, your guy falls over. Right, okay, that hurt. Yeah, so I think that I'm sort of hitting the wall at that point. Like, I can't just like not improve my characters, and I've been able to detect that gradually happening from other perspectives as well. Like, I'm still having to farm when I'm farming materials from bosses. I still have to farm a boss that's like 20 levels below me, because otherwise the incoming damage is too high for me to cope with from their ultimates. So yeah, I think I've more or less hit the wall on that, and I'm just going to have to change my tack. I think that's. I mean, it was always going to be the case that I was going to hit the wall eventually. It's just a question of how far through could you get before it becomes an actual problem for your progression. But the sort of the damage, the difficulty level that you're presented with is a little bit schizoid. Sometimes it seems like you're doing perfectly well, and then a bunch of animated TVs will show up and they will all use an AoE attack and your entire team will fall over.
As they
And
do.
yeah, and it feels like you're playing Persona 3 and got ambushed. It's not it's not really there's not really any resolution to that situation in any direct sense other than to be tough enough to survive the first volley.
Yeah.
Hit point values and stuff just aren't terribly high in the game to begin with, but you need to be at that break point between life and death in order to keep going. So yeah. I am generally speaking quite happy with it, and I'm starting to go back and do some of the other things now. And some of those things, because it uses the world level system functionally, they're called equilibrium levels in Star Rail. Because it fundamentally uses that same system, I'm still running into some issues where stuff that would have been easy for me earlier in the game, now because I'm doing it at a higher level where there's a bigger discrepancy between my gear and my characters, are now virtually impossible. Like challenges where you've got to clear all of the fights in an area within a certain number of turn cycles. A lot of those are impossible for me simply because my output is not high enough anymore relative to the amount of health the enemies have. Even if I'm able to complete the challenge, I just can't do the damage fast enough. So yeah, there's things like that that are only really resolvable by using gear. So there's quite a few of those. And I'm going back and I'm doing a bunch of the story content. I've got a vast pool of story content from side stories and character stories and things that are waiting for me. Like last night I did one that is on Xianzhou Waifu. Well, actually, before that I did one on Jirolo 6, which was an incredibly winding story over a course of a couple of quest chains, which start with it starts with a person who was submitting shoddy work on robots to the military and proceeds through a corruption scandal and then a heirloom box that one person was involved who was involved in the story had, and then you go and you look for a key to the heirloom box, and then once you resolve that, it turns out that there's this mystery signal that is being broadcast towards Euro 6, and then it turns out that for like 70 generations, the Interterrestrial Peace Corporation appliance sales marketing line has been broadcasting adverts to Jirolo 6 despite them being cut off from the rest of the galaxy, and they've suddenly detected that there are people on Jirolo 6 again, but they were fully intending to broadcast adverts to a dead planet for the rest of time up until that point.
But why though?
And then you've got to help the guy who's responsible for sending adverts to Jirolo 6 to compile a report for his superior on what's been happening for the last 700 years. And then after that, you have to do an investigation to find out exactly where this robot called Findy that you picked up way earlier in the story. Ari might have even encountered Findy at this point.
Yeah, he was in the mines. He was right beside Giguk.
Yeah, then Findy, you've got to work out where Findy comes from, and
Oh
and
yeah,
so on.
he actually has a backstory. He's not just a random
not
robot.
not much of one. He does boil down to just being a random robot, but they still sell Findies. It's just that the version number has moved up quite a number of times over the last 700 years, and the Findy that you've got is actually an antique.
Oh, so is he worth money?
I guess he might be, but eventually I think you basically give him to Asta as part of her collection of weird antique gadgets. But yeah, it was quite a sprawling quest, and that was like a random blue world quest. That wasn't like a major story quest or anything. And so yeah, it's quite sprawling. And then I did one of the quests, which is like daily quests are green, world quests are blue, main quests are yellow, but there is this thing called Trailblaze continuances, which are orange quests. And Trailblaze continuances are like they're sort of like major side stories, I guess, where a bunch of different stuff happens and a bunch of often new characters you haven't met yet get involved in that, and they take place in the aftermath of a of the main story for that world, where basically you get drawn into things because of the credibility that you built up over the course of the main conflict, and you get involved in stuff that varies in level of seriousness from very serious to very silly, sometimes within the same quest. Like in Crown of the Mundane and Divine, which is a Trailblaze continuance, you go from fighting the basically a Zerg, an artificial emanator of propagation, which is basically a demigod which only impulses to consume and multiply. And so this is quite a threat. And then you go from that point you end up also dealing with nurturing small pudding shaped creatures.
What?
And then you get accused of something, and then you've got to go on this sort of like trip through people's memories to investigate ways that you can exonerate yourself, and then you have like a Phoenix Wright style debate over your innocence at the end. It's a very, very weird and complicated quest. The one that I'm currently on, it takes place on the Xianxue Luofu, and it's basically about. It starts off with Gunaifan, and Gunaifan is a streamer. Well, she's basically originally a refugee who got taken in by the authorities because her two elder brothers were trying to support the family through piracy after everybody they know and love was murdered by the minions of Nanook, and their entire planet was cleansed of all life. And they got away, and they survived. They managed to eke out a marginal existence, and then eventually turned to piracy. And eventually tried to raid a Xianzhou ship, and eventually got taken into custody. And because the inhabitants of that world ship don't really take such things so seriously, because they're all basically, they live for thousands of years, so something that's a big deal to a short-lived person is kind of small potatoes to them. They did their time and now have legitimate means of support. Gunaifan, as the youngest in the family, basically she decided she was going to become a street performer. So she does things on the street entertainment like juggling and sword swallowing and stuff, as well as a live streamer. And so basically this quest kicks off because she and her bestie tried to break into this sort of restricted area, which was originally supposed to be a garden of relaxation for Foxians, but has sort of become a de facto mausoleum for the Foxian dead because a lot of that race died in the big war. And so they try and investigate it for like rumors of the paranormal going on there, and they encounter something that seems kind of paranormal, and it turns out that there's like a whole bunch of like these energy creatures living there that are causing all sorts of havoc and whatnot. And basically Gunaifan's whole mission is to farm this stuff for clicks. And you get drawn into this somehow, and end up getting involved in sort of like the recreation of this epochal fight between the general of the Luofu and the boss of these big energy creatures. And you do all these things like getting caught in illusions and wandering around in sort of like a Legend of Zelda Lost Woods type scenario where you end up going around in circles for ages, and then you've got to talk to all of these mirror reflections of characters and work out which one is the real one. And there's a lot of weird stuff happens there again. And I haven't even finished this quest yet. Having beat the boss, it's just now moved on to a phase where, now you've got to run a social media website where people will report their rumors of the paranormal to you, and you have to investigate these somehow. And the bad guy that you just beat, you have to try and bully / cajole / threaten / bribe into helping you do this. So yeah, I have been thoroughly entertained by the whole thing. It's just all very ridiculous, which is frankly a necessary departure from the sheer depressing gravity of a lot of the rest of the story, because everything is a conspiracy everywhere and nothing is ever any good anywhere. It's sort of like what's going on
Like real life.
in the main plot. Yeah, and I got bullied by like the mimetic incarnation of death on Penacony, so I needed to do something relaxing. So, yeah. At any
Yeah.
rate, it's providing me with an abundance of good fun right now. Is the short version. And I guess I will leave it there.
Right.
All right.
We're going to take a break because I'm going to split the stream in two and be sure everything's recording and nothing happens because we're going archive only this week. YouTube changed its interface again, and I did not push the right button to start the stream on time. So we're going to put this this half of the thing away. So for the listener, if you go immediately to the next episode, no time will have passed. This will be a part 1 and a part 2 on the upload. See y'all then.